Hello, this is John, Jaw1. I'm here with my mom.
Hello.
That's my mom, Nancy, and then my uncle, David.
Hi.
And my uncle David has a deep love and concern for old growth farce. So, first of all, David, could you tell me what awoke your imagination to the importance of old growth farce?
Being in them.
So being in them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me something about that.
Well, because old growth forests have a spiritual quality that I don't think exists anywhere else.
Huh. And then what have you felt or seen about the way that logging companies look at wood, and what would you want people to understand about that?
The way they look at wood, well, they just see money, I think, is all. And I don't know, just the only thing is that if people actually spent some time in old growth forests or in wilderness,
Focus
then
right there.
Then they might. I was looking at the trees out there actually, but anyway, then they might. And I'm not sure that they would, but I think they might come to understand the value of it. Whereas in our society, we don't get our information about things like that firsthand. We were sort of taught to believe that the use of products is a greater value than the use that the forest has in its created form.
Yeah. So if people had come to a basic awareness, I mean, they'd been in an old growth forest, they saw that maybe this isn't something that should be just sort of cut down and chewed up. What are some basic things people can do to try to make a difference in terms of trying to protect old growth farce?
I've been working on that. I haven't really found any. Actually, of course, there has been a lot done to protect them to some extent, but they're still being logged. And I don't know. If I knew, I'd be doing it, I guess.
Write your congressman.
Yes, write your congressman. That's certainly one thing. I don't really know. I was involved with like some Earth Firsters. Actually, it was more wilderness than ancient forest there, but that's also valuable. And so people can protect them to some extent by just making a pain in the neck of themselves. But in the long view, it's people need to know that they're valuable, and they need to pass that on to their children. Take their children out in the woods, let their children explore stuff. I was fortunate when I was little to have spent a lot of time in the woods.
So there you have it. I wanted to express, I think that different people carry different parts of wisdom, and my grandfather, rest in peace, has passed on. One of the things that my Uncle David inherited from my grandfather was a love for God's creation. David and I have a little bit of a different worldview on things, but one thing we can agree on is that this world that we have, that we share, is a gift, and we should care for it in such a way that we can meaningfully pass it on to our children. And that I think is just responsibility. In biblical language, it would be called stewardship. In David's language, I think he would just call it sanity. Money is not the greatest value. Did you hear me say that? Do you believe that? In the Bible it says, simply, you cannot love God. You cannot serve God and serve money. Money is a tool. It's like worshiping a hammer or an axe. It is not an end in itself.
What was it? A great man once said, how can you love God whom you have not seen if you don't first love man who you have seen? And I would say the same thing related to the creation.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if God takes personally how we treat each other, love your neighbor as yourself, how do you think God thinks when we're just sort of, I don't care about that creation. I just want to mess it up, and cut it down or whatever, plow through it, just ignore it and not even evaluate. Maybe it was put here for a reason.
Yeah. A friend of mine once said, what's it? He said, he thought it would be worth cutting down all the ancient forests that exist to save one human life, which I think of course, there's no way that would save one human life anyway, but he was trying to make a hypothetical of the value of forest in comparison to human life. And yet, the same politicians who would have you cut down all the forests. You okay?
No, I'm just thinking you cut down all the trees,
yes,
and we won't be able to breathe, man. I mean, the trees give us oxygen. I mean, there's a little bit of like basic things in reality, like trees provide oxygen, And
the same politicians that would have you cut down all the forests are generally politicians who could care less about pollution and things that do take human life, and their human life becomes of less value than corporate profit to those same politicians.
Boy, now we're getting political. I want to be honest and just simply say, when Jesus got political and ruffled some of the Pharisees and Sadducees' feathers in terms of their structure and organization of things, that got him crucified. So we're not lining up to get crucified yet, until it's God's time. Well, no, I just there's something deeper to wrestle here. There's an insanity going on where we live in a culture that has learned to love things and use people rather than loving people and using things. And that is a poison that's going on that I believe David and I stand against. And we would encourage everyone that sees this to consider in your own life, how do I learn to love people more than the things that I possess? I remember standing with a Latino brother who had a beautiful truck, and he had 2 sons. And he was wondering, why aren't my 2 sons listening to me? And I just looked at him one day as he was drinking his Budweiser and said to him, if you had just spent as much time with your 2 sons as you spent loving this truck, your relationship with your 2 sons would be very different. We've got to recalibrate our basic values, and there's a lot of work ahead. Any last shout-outs?
There's a group called Leave No Child Inside, and which I think is a kind of neat group. I'm not really that familiar with them, but I remember someone talking from that group and saying, imagine that there are children who have spent their entire life never seeing a star, which I think is
I know that in LA.
Spiritually impoverishing, thing. And I mean, that's you are spiritually impoverished, I think, if you haven't seen creation.
Yeah. Look at Upward Bound and lots of other things. Long history. Jesus even I recently talked about, Jesus took the 3 of the disciples on a spiritual retreat, and they had some amazing experiences, but that was a previous reflection. Gotta go now. Keep the faith. Blessings. Blessings to you all.
Take care.